Do me a favor, picture a game that you've been anticipating for months. It doesn't matter what game, just remember the feelings you felt and the hype that you had. Now, imagine that you're looking forward to playing that game on the Steam Deck, but you don't know yet if it's going to be compatible for one reason or another. Finally, imagine that Valve rates the game as verified pre-release and your nerves get put to ease. Maybe you're even ready to pre-order the game now that you know it's going to work on your preferred device for playing video games. Well, what happens when that game comes out and it runs like absolute? What if you pre-ordered that game using Green Man Gaming or Fanatical because they had a discount and now you can't use Steam support for refunds? Do you still try to get your money back? Do you wait for patches? Over the course of the last week, a Steam Deck controversy has kind of come and gone. It seems like most everyone can agree that Steam Deck's verification rating system is not ideal, but what we can't seem to agree on is how important that actually is. We started the week disappointed with the fact that Remnant 2 launched in a poor state, especially on Steam Deck where it was preemptively rated as Deck verified, but we quickly lost interest thanks to two pieces of good news. First, the Armored Core developers over at From Software said that they'll be fully supporting the Steam Deck. I'll give you the full story on that later, but Armored Core 6 is one of the most anticipated upcoming games, and even though many of us were confident that it would play well on the Steam Deck, it was really great news to hear From Software actually confirmed that they are specifically targeting compatibility with the deck. Quickly after that, Ratchet Clank released, and while there was a lot of SSD related drama around Ratchet Clank, we also got to see firsthand that Ratchet really deserved to get the verified badge for the Steam Deck. It plays incredibly well to the point where it caused a lot of arguments about whether the developers were lying when they said that this game wouldn't be playable on the PS4. That specific controversy died down pretty quickly as well, but the point is we kind of all forgot about the Steam Deck verified drama. Well, for now. Thankfully, we did get two really excellent articles about the Deck Verified system, one from Steam Deck HQ titled "The Steam Deck Verified System Needs to Change and Here's How It Can Be Fixed," and one from Overkill.wtf titled "Remnant 2 on Steam Deck, Great Game, but Performance Issues Highlight a Bigger Problem." Links to both are in the description, but yeah, both of these do a great job of breaking down the issues with the verified system and provide potential ways to fix it. I should give a short explanation of how Valve intends for you to use the Deck Verified system to inform your purchases. Most of you already know the deal, so I will keep it short and sweet. There are three categories for any game that's been rated, verified, playable, and unsupported. These three categories are meant to capture the entire spectrum of experiences you'll have on the Steam Deck, right? Verified means that not only does it work on the Steam Deck, but that it works without any manual work or extra work from the player. So if you need to enter a name, the virtual keyboard pops up automatically right when you need it. If you need to read text, it's legible without using the Steam Deck's built-in magnifier. And when it comes to performance, according to Valve, the game must ship with a default configuration that results in a playable frame rate. That means I shouldn't need to change anything in the settings to get a playable frame rate on the Steam Deck, but the question, of course, is what does playable mean? One time in a video I made before the launch of the Steam Deck, I asked this same question and most people in the comments answered that a game would have to have a minimum frame rate of 30 FPS to be considered playable. But now that we've had 18 plus months of the Steam Deck verified system, do you personally believe 30 FPS should be the minimum for playable? Definitely let me know in the comments. One thing seems clear though, Valve doesn't seem to think that the minimum should be 30 FPS, and based on the state of Remnant 2, the minimum is probably closer to 24-25 FPS if not lower. When I ran a poll over the weekend, here were the results. Most of you still say 30, a good amount of you say 40, some of you even go as low as 24 to 25. Here was a good comment that said, depending on the game, even 24 to 25 FPS is acceptable. I tried Control with 25 FPS for some very low power gaming and it was fine. Going back to Remnant 2, the articles from both Steam Deck HQ and Overkill shared that their experience with the game included dips into the low 20s and sometimes even the high teens, even in the beginning areas of the game. Importantly, as Overkill points out, Remnant 2 is one of the first big Unreal Engine 5 games, and it's hard to tell if this is a sign of things to come with regard to UE5 performance on the Steam Deck, or if developers will learn to better optimize their UE5 games in the future. One more thing pointed out by Steam Deck HQ is that Verified's problems don't necessarily stop at verified games that are performing poorly. There are other problems, like games that are listed as unsupported which appear to work on the Steam Deck. One example I would point out here is Yakuza 4 Remastered, which was in the July Humble Choice. It was the only game in that bundle listed as unsupported, but as far as most people have reported, they've run into no issues playing this game on the Steam Deck. Personally, I think it would help to have a more descriptive reasoning as to why unsupported games have been rated as such. The thing with all of this though is I can't really tell how many people actually care. There seem to be two camps of folks, and they both don't seem to care very much. On the one hand, you have people that are coming from consoles and may even be used to occasionally having games with frame rates in the low 20s and high teens. On the other side are people coming from PC gaming, and this group of people just seem to ignore the verified system altogether, and they really favor either just testing themselves or relying on user reports from ProtonDB for more information. So I'm curious, is this important to you? Personally, I think it's at least a little important because of the scenario I described in the opening of the video. While I wouldn't call myself an advocate for pre-orders, I am personally open to pre-ordering if I see a good discount on Green Man Gaming or Fanatical. I understand that a game I buy may end up disappointing me, but I would at least like to have some peace of mind when I see the verified badge that it is at least technically sound. Of course, I haven't even talked about patches that break compatibility, but that's just a whole other can of worms itself. Anyway, yeah, let's get to some other Steam Deck news, but definitely let me know in the comments what you think. And if you haven't noticed, I have something like 68.8 or 68.9 thousand subscribers. I think you know what to do next if you want to see me hit 69,000 subscribers. Alright, as I mentioned, the developers over at From Software have now said that Armored Core 6 will be fully supported on the Steam Deck. We don't know yet how it's going to run, and I watched a preview of the game on SkillUp's channel, and he did point out that the graphical options are rather limited, as we've kind of come to expect from the developers of Dark Souls, Sekiro, and Elden Ring. Still though, all of those games run well enough on deck, and I am completely expecting to play AC6 on the Steam Deck as well. Likewise, Ratchet Clank launched last week, and people have been praising how well it runs on the Steam Deck. It is truly astonishing to see a game that was previously a PS5 exclusive run so well on a handheld. This is one of my favorite games on the PS5. It was perhaps a bit too easy, but it's also incredibly charming, and it kept me entertained the entire time. If you haven't played it, well, it's well worth a pickup, or at least adding it to your wish list if you see a discount down the line. For Honor's anti-cheat has now been updated to work with the Steam Deck. According to Steam Deck HQ, this game already had a playable badge, but there were still reports on ProtonDB of the game not working thanks to Easy Anti-Cheat. The patch notes for this update, version 2.45.1, point out that this update of Easy Anti-Cheat makes the game playable on Steam Deck. As always, it's great to see developers make updates like these for the Steam Deck. On that same note, Heroic Launcher got a big update that adds a few big things like support for Amazon games, as well as DRM support for browser apps like Netflix. I personally haven't tried this update yet. I do have a few hundred games that I've claimed from Amazon Games every month just because I'm already an Amazon Prime subscriber. They do often have some pretty good games that are worth claiming if you already have Prime. Have you tried this update yet? Is it working for you? I also want to recommend a new video from CryoBite33. In this video, Kyle tests different ways of getting better cooling on the Steam Deck, and honestly the results are pretty impressive. Even just the latest backplate from JSOX does a considerably better job of cooling the deck than the existing backplate. One caveat is that if you have the Delta fan, the fan noise will be even more noticeable than it was with the stock backplate. Additionally, this new backplate will be more susceptible to dust, but if you have the transparent version, you should be able to notice that easily, and it should be pretty straightforward to clean it anyway. But Kyle tested 5 more products in addition to the new JSOX backplate, and he gives interesting results and use cases for each, so this video is well worth a watch. I'll leave a link in the description. In other news, here's something that was really interesting. Let me know what you think. It looks like the ROG Ally has been selling incredibly well, with potentially 500,000 units sold by now. This is according to Wesley at RetroResolve.com, who found a report from DigiTimes Asia that says that the Ally has made $318.6 million in total sales so far. DigiTimes says that this is according to a company's sources, and it appears that these are not necessarily official numbers, but instead a leak of some sort. In any case, RetroResolve did some rough napkin math and found that this works out to about 455,000 units sold if you assume about $700 in revenue for each unit sold. That would be absolutely incredible for any PC handheld. Certainly the retail release and global release is helping Asus reach incredible sales numbers. As with the Steam Deck, these are very unofficial numbers for the time being, so it is all to be taken with a grain of salt, but it's interesting nonetheless. Especially because if the Ally is this successful, you can be sure that other laptop makers are going to be jumping into this market. That's why I am not surprised by a new leak that indicates Lenovo is working on their own PC gaming handheld called the Legion Go. Windows Central is reporting that it will sport an AMD Phoenix processor and an 8-inch display, and that there is no timing whatsoever for an official announcement or launch. In my experience, Windows Central has always had very reliable reporting, so I expect that Lenovo really is in fact working on a handheld, but whether or not we see it come to fruition and actually get announced may be a different story. Importantly, Lenovo was working on an Android handheld called the Lenovo Legion Play that was never actually released and never saw the light of day. Still, if they were going to officially release a PC handheld, I would say now is of course the right time. Listen, there are a lot of games coming out in August that I'm looking forward to playing on the Steam Deck. Baldur's Gate 3 is out in just a couple of days, Armored Core 6, Sea of Stars, and a few more awesome games are coming out in August. I couldn't fit that in here, so if you all want to know what games to keep an eye on for August, check out my last video over here. Deck Gang out. Goodbye!